Alrighty. And let me check it out. Yeah, we are online, I think. Hold on a second. Okay, we are ready to go. Got some people who are sitting in the classroom and other people who are not in the classroom. Let me put you in the classroom. Okay. I guess some people just didn't want to get in the classroom today. So switch back to the regular view. Okay, we are ready to go. And so we'll chant some nice Vaishnav song. I haven't selected one yet, but we will chant a nice Vaishnav song before class. All right. Let's see which song are we going to chant. Oh, here's a nice one. Of course, they're all nice because they're all about Krishna or his devotees. Kasari Adi Hare Murite Nayane Bhavene Arakabir Chaitanya Koruno Hoy Samsana Pashana Mora Kapitu Jai Vishaya Chatiya Kavi Shudahame Mana Gavi Hama Hirava Shri Vrindavan Kavi hama puja se yugara piti Rupa Raghunatha Pade Raho Moracha Pratana Kore Sada Naruto Litehame Pulakasani Hadiate Pulite Nayaneva Gorangava Litehame Pulakasani Adi ade murite nayane vago Kuranga burite ame pulaka sare Adi ade burite nayane vago Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Jai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paracharya all Stutata Satashi Shimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Charanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopikapanath Shyam Kund Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Maturadam Ki Jai Jagannatha Swami Ki Jai Yamunamai Ki Jai Srimati Lasi Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol all glories the assembled devotees, all glories the assembled devotees, all glories the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. So, Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschacha Dejatarni. So, Om Gana Timiranda Shah Ranjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Meditam Yena Tasmai Shi Gurave Namaha. So, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So we're going to continue with our reading of the Sri Caitanya Caritamrta. We are on the third chapter of the Madhya Leela of the Caitanya Caritamrta, and we are reading right now about some very humorous pastimes, exchanges between Advaitacharya and Lord Nityananda that occurred in Advaitacharya's house as Lord Nityananda was taking prasadam and Advaitacharya was chastising him. Anyway, you'll hear about this. Very, very humorous pastimes. So let's continue. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. So we're continuing with text 85, and the humor really gets intense here. So if I laugh, please excuse me. Marashta Baduta Tumi Udhara Barite Sanyasa Lahiache Ushi Brahmanadandite. Okay. Advaitacharya said, "You are a reject Paramahamsa, and you have accepted the renounced order of life just to fill up your belly. I can understand that your business is to give trouble to Brahmanas." Let me just see. Yes, Brashta Avaduta. Avaduta means like the wind, someone who's a Paramahamsa. Has no, basically no request from anybody else. He just depends on Krishna 100%, and Brashta means rejected. So he's a rejected sannyasi, and it sounds like he's accusing of him of being a Kali Yuga sannyasi who takes sannyas just for pecuniary business. There's always a difference of opinion between a Smarta Brahman and a Vaishnava Goswami. There are even Smarta opinions and Vaishnava Goswami opinions available in astrological and astronomical calculations. By calling Nityananda Prabhu a Brashta Avaduta, rejected Paramahamsa, Advaitacharya Prabhu, in a sense, accepted Nityananda Prabhu as a Paramahamsa. I guess I should explain that. Because insofar as those who are ritualistic, they're called smartas, are concerned, if one is rejected by them and they're a devotee, they're real Paramahamsa. In other words, Nityananda Prabhu had nothing to do with the rules governing Smarta Brahmanas. Thus, under pretense of condemning him, Advaitacharya was actually praising him. In the Avaduta stage, the Paramahamsa stage, which is the supermost stage, one may appear to be a Vishaya on the platform of sense gratification. But in actuality, it has nothing to do with sense gratification. At that stage, a person sometimes accepts the symbols of dress of sannyasi and sometimes does not. Sometimes he dresses like a householder. We should know, however, that these are all joking words between Advaitacharya and Nityananda Prabhu. They are not to be taken as insults. So let's talk about the different stages of sannyas. In the traditional Vedic society, one's renunciation from this world was a very gradual process. First of all, there wasn't sannyas in the beginning. What do I mean? There's the 4 ashrams: brahmachari, grahastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. Because a brahmachari is a student, he gets trained up how to serve the spiritual master, etc., etc., etc. And then the brahmachari is allowed to get married when he imbibes the principles of service to the guru. Brahmachari guru kule vasandanda guraritam. Then, when he gets older and his wife gets older, they take a vanaprastha. Vanaprastha means that they serve the Lord without any sense gratification, basically. That's right. No more sense gratification. No more... Anyway, I'm not going to say coochie coochie. Anyway, no more sense gratification. Anyway, no more sense gratification. They're serving the Lord. And actually in Kali Yuga, that's the preferable order of renunciation for most people, to serve the Lord with one's wife, preaching Krishna consciousness. That's preferable. Okay. Then, in the traditional Vedic system, after that, one would take sannyas. They would leave the wife behind, but they would not be too renounced at that point because they couldn't figure out how to feed themselves. And I'm not talking about at the dinner table, I'm talking about the cooking process. Because their whole lives they have been dependent on their wife rolling rotis for them. If you don't know what a roti is, that's a chapati. If you don't know what a chapati is, that's a flatbread. Okay, got it. So their whole lives they were dependent upon that. And so, being dependent upon that, they couldn't figure out, how am I going to eat? Because they didn't know how to cook themselves. That's the problem, being too much dependent on another person. Because if the other person isn't there, you don't know what to do. So Prabhupada said our movement is for making independently thoughtful people. People not overly dependent on others. Because if you're overly dependent externally on others, we're not talking about the spiritual master right now, but if you're overly dependent externally on others, it weakens you. Yes, it does. It weakens you tremendously. And then you can be controlled by others. You understand? Because I need a particular individual to do something for me, and you're not thinking of a different alternative strategies, thinking outside the box to fulfill your particular needs. So anyway, so this guy who just took sannyas, he's living in the same village, on the outskirts of the village, and the wife is sending him food every day. Even though she can't see him, she's sending him food. This is something like, I hate to mention, like they have restaurants who deliver. It's like Pizza Hut delivery from the wife. So the wife will send the husband some pizzas or something. So, and then after that, the husband thinks, maybe I should become a little more renounced. Then he actually starts doing madhukari. Madhukari means that he goes from house to house. Let me make sure it's loud enough. Always have to make sure the loudness is there, because the noise has to be reset after I do the kirtan. Okay, it's loud enough. So he goes house to house. Wait a second. Okay. He goes house to house and asks, like Madhukari, he takes a little roti or a little pizza from each house. And that's the next stage. And the next stage after that is called, after that stage, he realizes, why am I spending all my time just asking for chapatis? Prabhupada one time said, there are so many sadhus, that means people doing madhukari, and so many rotis, that means chapatis. And he said, there are more sadhus than chapatis. So there has to be some competition. It's something like that game we used to play when we were young, musical chairs. Anyway, so after a while he figures out, Krishna's taking care of me. Let me just do this Parvajakacharya stuff. And then he goes and he depends on Krishna. He can ask people for food or something like that, but basically he's preaching and traveling widely and he doesn't worry about the food. And then the final stage is called the Paramahamsa stage, in which basically you don't even ask people for food and Krishna provides. And one is like the wind, avaduta, because there's no basic, let's say, ritual rules for someone to follow. In other words, one could wake up at any time of the day or night. One can dress in any fashion or not dress in any fashion. But this is a very high stage, and Lord Nityananda was on that stage. And that's what Advaita Acharya is signifying by his words. Okay, so in Kada Doho, sometimes people misunderstood Nityananda Prabhu to belong to the Shakta Sampradaya, whose philosophy is Anta Shakta Bhati Saiva Savayam Vaishnavo Mataha. According to the Shakta Sampradaya, a person called Kolavaduta thinks materially while externally appearing to be a great devotee of Lord Shiva. When such a person is in an assembly of Vaishnavas, he appears like a Vaishnava. Actually, Nityananda Prabhu did not belong to such a community. Nityananda Prabhu was always a brahmachari, of a sannyasi of the Vaidika order, the Brahminical order. Actually, he was a Paramahansa. Sometimes he is accepted to be a disciple of Lakshmi Pati Tirtha. If he is so accepted, Nityananda Prabhu belonged to the Madhva Sampradaya. He did not belong to the Tantrika Sampradaya of Bengal. So the Tantrics, of course, is left-handed Tantrics. There's right-handed Tantrics. The word Tantra means to connect. So we also have Tantric literature for Vaishnavas, but that literature connects us to Krishna. And the left-handed Tantrics, because we're right-handed Tantrics, the left-handed Tantrics, their literature connects them to voodoo, black magic, and all sorts of mode of ignorance stuff like eating out of skulls and making obscene gestures and eating fish and meat and having illicit sex. Yeah. Anyway, that's what the Tantrics are. And Lord Nityananda was certainly not like that. He was a Vaishnava. He's a Supreme Lord, but he's a Vaishnava of the top, highest quality. Tumi kete paradasha vishamane rahana amitaha kana pava daridra brahmana. Advaitacharya accused Lord Nityananda Prabhu, saying, "You can eat 10 or 20 manas of rice. I am a poor brahmana. How shall I get so much rice?" A mana is a measurement containing about 40 kilos. Now, just let's do the mathematics. You can eat 10 manas, or 10 times 40 kilos, which is 400 kilos of rice. Hare Krishna. And what to speak of 20, which is 800 kilos of rice. I do not think that any of us could eat even 1/100th of that. Anyway, so the point is that as Giriraj, he did eat that much. Ye panacha musjeka anataha kanahuta pagalami nakariha nachidayo jutta. Whatever you have, though it be a palmful of rice, please eat it and get up. Don't show your madness and strew the remnants of food here and there. Hey matahasya se karena bhojana arda arda kana prabhu chadena vyanjana. In this way, Nityananda Prabhu and Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu ate and talked with the Advaitacharya jokingly. After eating half of each vegetable preparation given to him, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu abandoned it and went on to the next. Se vyanjana charya puna karena purana he mata puna puna pariveshe vyanjana. As soon as half of the vegetable in the pot was finished, Advaitacharya filled it up again. In this way, as the Lord finished half of preparation, Advaitacharya again and again filled it up. Dona vyanjane bari karena prartana prabhu balena harakata kari vavoshana. After filling the pot with vegetables, Advaitacharya requested them to eat more, and Caitanya Mahaprabhu said, "How much more can I go on eating?" Acharya kahe ye diyachi tahana chadiba ekana ye diyatara ardhega kaiva. Advaitacharya said, "Please do not give up whatever I've already given you. Now whatever I'm giving you may eat half and leave half. Nana yatna dainge parburi karayala bhojana acharyara icha prabhu karila purana." In this way, by submitting various humble requests, Advaitacharya made Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda eat. Thus, Caitanya Mahaprabhu fulfilled all the desires of Advaitacharya. Now, of course, let me explain that this is actually Vedic hospitality. You just sit down and you keep, or you have your guests sit down, you keep feeding them and feeding them and feeding them. until they just can't take it anymore. You just keep putting more on their plate. And actually, the system is you're supposed to hold your hands over your plate when you don't want any more. You can't say I don't want any more, because if you say I don't want any more, you're going to get more on your plate. Nityananda kahi amara peta na varila lanna yaha tora ana kichuna kaila. Again, Nityananda Prabhu jokingly said, my belly is not yet filled up. Please take away your food. I have not taken the least of it. Eta balieka grasa patahate lanya uhali felach. No, sorry. After saying this, Nityananda Prabhu took a handful of rice and threw it on the floor in front of him as if he were angry. Bata dvichare lage acharya range batahange lanacharya nache bahu range. When 2 or 4 pieces of the thrown rice touched his body, Advaitacharya began to dance in various ways with the rice still stuck to his body. Avadutera juta lagila morahange parama pavitra more kailahe dange. When the rice thrown by Nityananda Prabhu touched his body, Advaitacharya thought himself purified by the touch of remnants thrown by Paramahansa Nityananda, therefore he began dancing. The Prabhupada explains, the word avaduta refers to one above all rules and regulations. Sometimes, not observing all the rules and regulations of a sannyasi, Nityananda Prabhu exhibited the behavior of a mad avaduta. He threw the remnants of food on the ground, and some of these remnants touched the body of Advaitacharya. Advaitacharya accepted this happily because he presented himself as a member of the community of Smarta Brahmanas. By touching the remnants of food thrown by Nityananda Prabhu, Advaitacharya immediately felt himself purified of all Smarta contamination. The remnants of food left by a pure Vaishnava are called Maha Prasadam. This is completely spiritual and is identified with Lord Vishnu. Such remnants are not ordinary. The spiritual master is considered to be on the stage of Paramahamsa and beyond the jurisdiction of the Varnashram institution. The remnants of food left by the spiritual master and similar Paramahamsas or pure Vaishnavas are purified. When an ordinary person touches such prasadam, his mind is purified, and his mind is raised to the status of a pure Brahman. The behavior and statements of Advaitacharya are meant for the understanding of ordinary people who are unaware of the strength of spiritual values, not knowing the potency of food left by the bona fide spiritual master and pure Vaishnavas. So I should comment on something here. Very, very, very interesting. Okay, let's talk about the smarta stuff here. Smarta doesn't mean, in this particular context, someone who is smart. It means the opposite. It means someone who is very attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, all the different rituals, without knowing what? The purpose of the Vedas. Krishna is very specific in text 15 of the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where he says, Vedais chasavaya rahame vavedu. By all the Vedas I am to be known. And also Krishna is very specific in the Gita when he says, Trigunya Vishya Veda Nish Trigunya Bhavarjuna. That he said the Vedas mainly deal with the 3 modes of nature. Nish Trigunya Bhavarjuna. Nirdvandvo Nirsattvasto Niryoga Kshema Atmavan. You should be established in the self, Arjuna, and don't be attached to all these different little rules and regulations. Sometimes we find devotees get really attached and they pick their favorite rule and regulation, the one that helps them accomplish their particular sense gratification. I'll give you an example. Sometimes they have these different injunctions about how a faithful wife should serve her husband like God. And so they take that out of context and they say to their wife, here's what the Vedas say, you should serve me like God. and the wife accepts what the husband says, unfortunately. But the problem is, those particular injunctions are there when you have a husband like God. Unfortunately, most of these people have a husband like Ravan. So you take things out of context. Obviously, if you're married to God, you treat him like God. If you're married to a pure devotee, you treat him or her like God. That makes sense. But if you're married to a Rakshasa, don't treat the Rakshasa like God. It's stupid. Where are the injunctions that you treat a Rakshasa like God? So anyway, getting back to the point, there are all these injunctions, secondary, tertiary injunctions in the Vedas that are meant for different circumstances, as we say, different shlokas. A shlok is an injunction, or a verse, sorry, for different folks, different shloks for different folks. And you can find your favorite shlok for your favorite folk and justify your particular objectives in life and exploitation of others and ritualistic behavior without really touching upon the essence of what the Vedas are meant for, which is to love Krishna. So we're meant to transcend. Of course, not that we disobey Vedic injunctions. So in southern India, the two classes of Brahmins, Vaishnava Brahmins, Smarta Brahmins. Smartas follow Shiva. Is it different in North India? Not all Smartas follow Shiva. Not just certain Smartas follow Shiva. Some Smartas, even in South India, they follow Vishnu. And there's Vaishnavites and there's devotees of Lord Shiva. And there's Smartas amongst both groups. Smarta means just someone who, if they're actually a devotee of Lord Shiva, they're not a Smarta. Because they're loving Lord Shiva. And if you love Lord Shiva, you worship Vishnu, because you'll see Lord Shiva as what? A devotee. Vaishnavanam yata shambhu. Smarta means basically one who's just attached to rituals. And you see that among some members of the Krishna conscious movement. That's true. They really get into Smarta behavior. I had a discussion with one of my godbrothers, and he said, if you want to have a discussion with me, we should speak in Sanskrit. But because you are not educated, referring to me, you are not that educated to speak in Sanskrit, I will speak in English. I will lower myself to speak to you in English, because you are not on the high level that I'm at. It's true. It's actually a true story. Can't give you all the details because it's a confidential stuff, but that's the attitude. Imagine that. Actually, there's that story in the Caitanya Caritamrta that the best, or the one who knew the Bhagavad Gita the best, couldn't even read. All he knew was the order of his spiritual master and the interaction between Krishna and Arjuna, how Krishna had become the chariot driver of Arjuna. And he was feeling the ras, feeling the nectar. And Lord Chaitanya said, you're the real knower of Bhagavad Gita, not someone who's a smarta. So, let's go on. Tore nimantrana kari painutara pala tora jati kula nahi Sahajay Pagala. Advaitacharya jokingly said, my dear Nityananda, I've invited you. Indeed, I've received the results. You have no fixed caste or dynasty. By nature, you are a madman. The words Sahajay Pagala, by nature, a madman. Sometimes you say that to someone in India. It's just Pagala. Paga. Indicate that Nityananda Prabhu was transcendently situated on the Paramahamsa stage because he always remembered Radha Krishna and their service. This was transcendental madness. Sri Advaita Acharya was pointing out this fact. Apanara samamore karibharatare juta dile viprabale vayana karile. To make me a madman like yourself, you have thrown the remnants of your food at me. You do not even fear the fact that I am a Brahmana. The word Apanara Sama indicate that Advaitacharya considered himself to belong to the Smarta Brahmanas, and he considered Nityananda Prabhu to be on the transcendental stage with pure Vaishnavas. Lord Nityananda gave Advaitacharya his remnants to situate him on the same platform and make him a pure unalloyed Vaishnava or Paramahansa. Advaitacharya's statement indicates that a Paramahansa Vaishnava is transcendently situated. A pure Vaishnava is not subject to the rules and regulations of the Smarta Brahmanas. That was the reason for Advaitacharya stating, Apanara sama more karibara today, to raise me to your own standard. A pure Vaishnava or a person on the Paramahansa stage accepts the remnants of food. Mahaprasadam is spiritual. He does not consider it to be material or sense gratificatory. He accepts Mahaprasadam not as ordinary dal and rice, but as spiritual substance. To say nothing of the remnants of food left by a pure Vaishnava, prasadam is never polluted, even if it is touched by the mouth of a chandala. Ooh. Indeed, it retains its spiritual value. Therefore, eating or touching such Mahaprasadam, a Brahmin is not degraded. There is no question of being polluted by touching the remnants of such food. Actually, by eating such Mahaprasadam, one is freed from all the contaminations of the material condition. That is the verdict of the Shastra. I remember hearing something like this in the early days of the movement, right before the Sunday feast. And during the Sunday feast, I would take the remnants of other people after they had finished eating, because I liked Glubjamins. Because I said, prasadam is never contaminated. Very, very interesting. So, anyway, as far as the question about chaste woman, yes, Mandodari was chaste, but she talked back to Ravana. She wasn't submissive. There's a little bit of difference. She gave Ravana advice, so don't bring that up there. There's chastity and also submission, which are different qualities. So, not appropriate quote. So, anyway, all right, another point is that I was listening to a class by Srila Prabhupada this morning, and there was this one person named Allen Ginsberg, who Prabhupada was trying to cultivate, and Allen Ginsberg was not a vegetarian. So Allen Ginsberg said, if you really want to propagate the Krishna conscious movement, how can you try to impose, I'm actually paraphrasing, how can you try to impose some like Indian cultural thing, like the prasadam, or the food that people eat? And Prabhupada said, I'm not trying to do that. He said, there's vegetables everywhere. Let them cook according to their local taste. It's a very interesting quote. Because some people think there's something inherently more spiritual about glubjamins than, let's say, pizza or bagels. Of course, probably no one here knows what a bagel is. There's something more spiritual than other ethnic food. But it's not true. Prabhupada was very specific about that. It's not that one type or one type of recipe is actually more spiritual than another type of recipe. Krishna says, Patram pushpam palam toya yome bhakta prayachati. One should offer me a leaf, a fruit, or a little water with love and devotion. I mean, for example, you have Sanatana Goswami not only not cooking, all this, let's say, fried foods and everything like that. He was offering to his deity, Madan Gopal, Madan Mohan, a dried bread ball. They take a bread ball, I guess, cook it in the sun or something like that. And he was offering without salt or butter. And he said to Krishna, you have to accept. Actually, Gopal said, bagels are holy. That's right. The holy bagels. So anyway, and Krishna accepted. Of course, Krishna complained too. He said, hey, where's the salt, Maharaj? And Maharaj, that is Sanatana Goswami, said to him, if you want salt, you got to get it yourself. And so Madan Mohan got his own salt by rescuing a salt barge that was stuck in the Yamuna, and he got the profits from it, and he paid for his own temple to be constructed. But actually, the point is love and devotion. You eat or you offer to Krishna the best of what you have. And if it's some other ethnic food, as long as it's within the category of vegetarian, without, things that are prohibited, then there's no difference. Like Prabhupada, I was with Prabhupada many times. Prabhupada liked cookies. Yes, the formal deity worship, Prabhupada wanted certain preparations for Krishna. That's right. That's something about the temples. But I was with Prabhupada, and Prabhupada liked cookies. Another point is that if we want to attract people to join the Krishna conscious movement, in addition to what, little ethnic things we offer to the deities, we should actually be making things that are attractive to people according to their culture. That's a fact. That's a fact. So anyway, getting back to the story with Prabhupada. I was with Prabhupada one time, and we brought with us, or I brought with me, a whole bunch of cookies to give out during a preaching program. Okay, cookies. They're not Vedic. Okay? They were what we call Prabhupada cookies. Very sweet, a lot of butter. Anyway, so what happened is that I forgot to give them out during the preaching program. I was very embarrassed, and I said to Prabhupada, I forgot to give it out. And Prabhupada put his hand out, and I didn't understand what was going on. And Sasrupa, who was with me, said, give Prabhupada a cookie. I gave Prabhupada a cookie. And then Prabhupada put his hand out again. Want another cookie? Another cookie, another cookie. And probably I had to give him the whole plate. I mean, didn't eat all the cookies on the plate, but Prabhupada loved cookies. So Prabhupada made that point to Allen Ginsberg, that we're not trying to convert people to a certain style of dress, to a certain style of eating, although some of us actually do make that change. But we're trying to let people love Krishna from within their particular culture. I mean, just like the food that I offered to the deities is probably not too Vedic. Some things are, like last night I showed you all the mango that I offered to the deities in the morning, and also this morning I offered mango to the deities. But let's say at night, what I just cooked and ate before the class was something called kasha. And probably none of you have heard of kasha unless you come from a certain ethnic background. And I put in that kasha broccoli. You will not find broccoli in any Vedic literature mentioned. And what else was in there? I put carrots. And some of the Vedic literature say, don't eat carrots. Those are for ritualistic Brahmanas, those particular injunctions. And I put chickpeas. Of course, there are chickpeas, garbanzo beans. That is there in India. And I put, what else did I put? Hungarian paprika, which doesn't come from India. Anyway, and so there are many things that are not mentioned, are not traditional. And also I had sauerkraut. which is German, with hemp seeds, which is, who knows where that comes from. So I offered all those to Giriraj, and Giriraj never complained to me. I never heard a peep out of Giriraj about the food. He's still smiling. Because if he didn't like it, he would have told me by now. So the point is, if we want to spread Krishna consciousness, we cannot be so attached to certain ethnic things. Of course, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. So if you're in a particular, let's say if you're in China preaching Krishna consciousness, then you could offer people tofu. Of course, I also offered that tonight. You can offer people tofu, and they can eat with chopsticks. Yes, our devotees in China eat with chopsticks. Not a spoon, chopsticks. So we often see, this is actually part of what I was just talking about with Smarta Brahmanas. We see these external things that have nothing to do with Krishna consciousness as being very much connected or essential for Krishna consciousness. They're not. If we actually want to turn the whole world or bring the whole world to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's lotus feet, yes, bamboo shoots. Yes, why not offer bamboo shoots? What's wrong with that? As long as the shoots are soft, not hard bamboo. Hard bamboo is going to break your teeth. So I've eaten bamboo shoots before. It's very nice. So if we're actually interested in bringing the whole world to Krishna consciousness, we have to understand the essence of Krishna culture. So many times devotees use this phrase, cultural conquest. And they think cultural conquest means dancing a certain way, wearing certain clothes, having your hairstyle a certain way, eating certain types of food. And some of those types of food will kill you long term because, you get diabetes and other things like that. But that's not cultural. Cultural conquest, the culture of Krishna consciousness is, first of all, to love Krishna with all your heart and with all your soul and all your might. That's one culture. There's other aspects of culture too. Being a gentleman or being a gentle lady, having good manners, being ethical, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. The golden rule is part of culture. Being compassionate to all living entities is part of culture. Trying to bring everybody to Krishna's lotus feet is part of culture. Bringing the chanting of Hare Krishna to everyone is part of culture. So we misunderstand this, cultural conquest. If we think that the whole world is going to be wearing dhotis and eating glubjamans, and that will be the symptom of our success. It's not going to be like that. We can get the vast majority of people to accept Krishna consciousness if we present it in terms of their culture. Just like if you look at any religion that's worldwide, successful, big, there's different cultural adjustments they make. I mean, maybe not all the adjustments that I would like to make, but anyway, so just like in the Christian religion, which is quite large, it's not that the Christians dress like Jesus Christ dressed, or the Christians in the Middle East or the Christians in Africa, they dress like whatever. And even amongst different, let's say the Jewish religion, you got different groups that dress different ways according to their culture. You have one group of the Jewish people called the Hasidim, who have long sideburns and dress in a certain way, and the ladies, I think they may even shave their heads and wear wigs or something like that. Yes, glubgemans are very tasty. I'm not denying that. I used to eat so many glubgemans that the cooks couldn't cook enough when I was a young man. I'm not denying that some of these preparations are very tasty. That's not my point. There's a lot of things that are tasty. Yes, Hare Krishna is lifestyles to elevate consciousness rather than religion in a sectarian sense. Because we often try to impose a sectarian concept of what we think Krishna consciousness is on others. I mean, we can accept certain sectarian things. That's fine. If you feel comfortable dressing this way or that way, or eating glubgemans, like your dinner is all glubgemans and sweet rice, and that's fine. I have no objection with that. But that's personal choice. But we have to. I never used to eat them thinking there's too much sugar syrup, still to this day. I mean, I used to love glubgemans. I still do love glubgemans, but I don't take them because, it's not so good for my health right now at this stage in life. Yes, fine to love glubgemans. I love glubgemans. But you're not gonna conquer the world by convincing everyone to love glubgemans. And we can give them to people. But people should feel comfortable without let's making too big an ethnic or a cultural jump to become Krishna conscious. We're talking about Western people now, not people from India. People from India, you give them a glubgeman, they know what it is. But people should be comfortable and not feel that they have to just do a 180-degree or 360-degree change in every aspect of their lives. You just add Krishna consciousness to your life. People can go back to Godhead without wearing a dhoti. Yep. Okay, on that controversial note, you can go back to Godhead and never eat a glubgeman your whole life. That may come as a shock. You can be a vegan and go back to Godhead. Thank God. All right, so let's take some questions from all you fanatic, ritualistic, smart Brahmins out there. Okay, who's the smart Brahmin who wants to ask me the first question? That's a loaded statement. Yeah, Praneshra. Oh, there you are with your wife. Congratulations. You're like Radha and Krishna. Good to see you. I wish I was in India, but they won't let me in India now. And even if I went to India, they wouldn't let me back in the United States. So, can't go. Okay, so what's the question?
Gurudev, like when we say to anyone pagal, he become angry.
I know. If you say, well, that means they're crazy. I know that. Falgu Baba. There's actually a temple in Brindavan, isn't it?
Yes, Gurudev.
It's called the Falgu Baba Temple, right?
Yes.
Falgu Baba Temple. That means the crazy Baba Temple. I've never been there. Have you been there?
Yes, I've been like,
What does it look like? They have crazy people walking around or what?
it's a normal temple, but only the name is Pagal Baba.
It's a normal temple. Okay. I've been to some temples in ISKCON that I can call Pago Baba temples too, so So here's the all right, you have another question?
Um, this one.
Question?
Yeah. Yes, as well, like a smart Brahmana, like how to to like to behave with them, how to like.
Respect them, but don't try to preach to them. Just say, yes, I'm so happy that you're following all the rules. Hare Krishna. Like the Smarta Brahmanas would never accept Narottama Das Thakur as a spiritual master. They wouldn't accept Prabhupada as a spiritual master. They wouldn't accept a lot of our Vaishnava spiritual masters because they're thinking that a guru can only come from the Brahmin caste. You understand? A Smarta
Yes.
Brahmin would not even consider Rupa Goswami or Sanatana Goswami because they had been serving the Muslims. They lost their caste. A Smarta Brahmin would consider that if a Muslim throws water on you, you become a Muslim. Did you know that?
Yes, yes, Gurudev.
There was one follower of Lord Chaitanya, and I forgot his name. Maybe someone can write his name down. And I forget his name right now. And anyway, the Nawab threw water on him, and because when the Nawab was young, the Nawab was his servant, and he hit the Nawab one time, and the Nawab's wife said, "You have to convert him into be a Muslim." And so he threw water on this guy, Subhuti Roy was the guy's name. He threw water on him, and he said, now I've become a Muslim. And so he went to the different Brahmins, the ritualistic Brahmins, and he said, what can I do to actually rectify myself? And they said, you have to drink molten metal. Like molten lead, molten whatever, which is actually kill you. And so then they went to Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya just said, just chant Hare Krishna. So anyway, so that's a ritualist, that's a smarta. All right?
Yes, Gurudev.
All right, thank you for your question. So here's a question from Aniruddha. Since Mandodari is, so to say, she's actually a good blueprint for wives. Because she talked back to her husband and gave her husband good advice. I never said Mandodari was bad. Mandodari was good. She wasn't submissive because she actually told Ravan what to do, which he didn't agree with, and he didn't follow his wife. He should have followed his wife. But she was chaste in the sense that she remained with Ravana. She didn't dump him and look for another guy. That's it. That's the point of Mandodari. But she wasn't submissive. So the point I'm making is there's this difference between submission and chastity. Everyone is meant to be chaste. The men should be chaste to their wives, the wives should be chaste to their husbands. But submission is not necessary unless one is being submissive to someone who is bona fide, saying the right thing. Let's say I'm in a temple and the temple president tells me to go smoke marijuana. You should not do that. Or if the wife, or let's say a husband and wife again, or the husband tells the wife, go buy me some liquor. The wife doesn't have to do that. But she shouldn't give up the husband. She should just tell him not to drink liquor anymore. Okay, who else has a question? Nalini Khan said we can throw water on them and then convert them to become a Hare Krishna. That's a good suggestion.
What would be the outcome of a demand?
Well, what's that, Andy? It's hard to hear you. Can you speak up?
What would be the outcome of a devotee who dies and never had the opportunity to get a bona fide guru?
Okay, if someone dies and didn't have the opportunity to get a bona fide guru, then we just pray for them, and if they're chanting the holy names, Krishna will take care of them and enable them to have a bona fide guru in the next life, hopefully. I mean, then one makes spiritual advancement by chanting the Lord's holy names. The holy names don't wait for initiation or accepting a guru. One can make spiritual advancement. But there's a principle, according to Srila Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Devotion, who is our acharya of accepting initiation. That's one of the principles. There's certain things that are optional, like I mentioned before, like the style of dress. That's not mentioned in the Nectar of Devotion, that one has to dress in a certain way or eat a certain type of food to be Krishna conscious. But there's certain principles, which are not details, that need to be followed, like following in the footsteps of the previous acharyas, taking instruction from the guru, worshipping Tulsi Devi, chanting the Lord's holy names, like that. Yeah, those are principles. I like your picture because it's really nice there. One day I will visit. One day I will visit you there. The water is crystal clear, and I'd love to go swimming there.
Yeah, you could pick some coconuts off that tree also.
Coconuts. Do you have mangoes there too?
Oh, mangoes, coconuts, you name it.
I'm
The tropical
I'm
island,
I'm coming. I'm coming.
Hare Krishna.
I'm on my way. Okay, who else? Who else has a question? No one else has a question. Hey, Pran Govinda, you should ask.
Hi, Krishna Gurudev.
Hare Krishna, Nikunjavasani. So, what's your question?
How do you decide, what is appropriate to offer to your to the lordships, Krishna?
Well, I would say as long as it's in the category of the foods in the mode of goodness, like fruits, vegetables, like Prabhupada said that. As long as it's in that category of foods in the mode of goodness, according to your own culture, not food that's too spicy, too hot, not food that's putrid, stale, decomposed. One should just look at the Bhagavad Gita and find food in the mode of goodness with love and devotion that's offered to Krishna. And then based on that, one can offer to Krishna. Of course, if one's in the temple, one offers the food that's the temple standard. Krishna Priya reminded me of that. It's not that you can change those things. Of course, on the Sunday feast, we do change these things. I mean, I remember last Sunday they were serving out pizza for the Sunday feast to all the guests. And I've been in Italy. I used to be GBC of Italy, and every temple has a wood pizza oven. I don't know if you know what a wood pizza oven is in Italy. And almost every temple has a pasta machine, a commercial pasta machine, where you put your, I guess, grains in or whatever pasta is made from. Then it comes out all types of pasta. There's curly pasta, straight pasta, noodles, and everything like that. And also many of the temples in Italy have ice cream machines. So I used to be the GBC in Italy, and it was the nicest GBC zone as far as food was concerned. And that's how they preached. Sunday feast was a pizza feast, and everybody loved it. And people were very Krishna conscious. They chanted and danced and ate pizza. Okay, here's a question. If a husband or wife is abusive mentally or physically and they separate but continue spiritual life, is it accepted? Yes. But there has to be chastity, that you're faithful to the person, but sometimes if someone is abusive, you don't stay with them. Don't stay with someone who's abusing you. I mean, it's called, I mean, there's many words for that, like codependency or whatever. If you're being abused, but remain faithful. Like Mandodari was with Robin. She never left Robin, but Robin wasn't abusing her. She just had a different opinion than Robin. So people should understand the Vedic marriage doesn't mean that the wife becomes like a Dumbo. I don't know if you know who Dumbo is. Dumbo is an elephant in the Walt Disney movies, which means no brain. Not that the wife becomes no brains and just follows the husband blindly. I mean, that's the general depiction. Like every husband wants the wife to be like Sita. But, you know, if you want to have a wife like Sita, then you have to be like Ram. If you want your wife never to argue with you, then you should be like Ram. But if you're like Robin, then just expect your wife to talk back a little bit. There's this... Aniruddha said that's why he's going to be a brahmachari. Aniruddha, you're only like 14 years old, right? How old are you now? 14, 15? 14, yeah. So Aniruddha, we'll talk about it later on. Brahmachari. Like there's this story that Prabhupada told about the man who wanted to have an obedient wife. It's a very interesting story. Once upon a time, there was a businessman, and he was planning out how he could have an obedient wife. So first of all, he thought, I don't have much money now, so can't get married now. So he was a potter, someone who made pots, not marijuana, but pots. He made pots, clay pots. So he had all these clay pots. He was making one clay pot. His initial investment, he had very little money. And so he made one clay pot. Okay, great. He said, now I will double my money because I'll sell this clay pot for more money. And with that, I'll be able to make 2 clay pots. And with that, I'll be able to make 4 clay pots, to the power of 2. 8 clay pots, 16 clay pots, 32 clay pots, 64 clay pots, 128 clay pots, you get it. 256 clay pots. And he was thinking, I'll be the pot king after a while, just make so much money selling pots. So he was thinking like that, wow, I'll get very rich from this one initial investment. And all I had was enough money to make one pot. So he's thinking like that. And he says, when I know the pot king is a misleading name. I know that. I know. But I know what people will think. So he keeps thinking about selling a pot. Still, he only has one pot that he's made, and he's just planning. And then he's thinking, when I have all that money, I'm going to get married, and I will marry a very beautiful, submissive girl. And if she doesn't listen to me, I'm going to kick her. So, as he said, kick her, he kicked the pot. And he destroyed his initial investment, and he lost everything. Prabhupada told that story. So the moral of the story is the husband should treat the wife nicely. The wife should be treated like Lakshmi. That's the point. And the husband, he should act like Narayan, not like Ravan. So people take so many quotes out of context, and they're like Ravan, but like I said, Mandodari was not submissive. And also, Draupadi, she had a service attitude, but I wouldn't say that she was submissive. She really talked back to her husbands. She was demanding that they kill Duryodhana and Karna and the rest of them. It's not that she just she sat back as some dumb blonde. Sorry about that one, if you happen to be blonde. So Not that she just sat back and just, said, yes, yes, sir. She was damn angry at her husbands for gambling her. And, and she expressed it, but she didn't leave them. There's a difference. Okay, on that happy note, we're not going to start training up people how to be good grahastas. Actually, what was it, a year or two ago, I was giving a seminar, part of my seminar, on how to take care of children. So someone asked me, how can you give a seminar on how to take care of children when you're a sannyasi? And I said, guess what? I used to be a child. So I do have some experience in this regard. The scientific studies show that more than 80% of adults used to be children. And that's a really high statistic, that more than 80% of every adult used to be a child. Can you believe that? I didn't know that until I studied those things in my, until I studied the scientific information. Okay, on that happy note, we'll end the class and we'll continue tomorrow with these pastimes. All glorious to His divine grace. Srila Prabhupada, Srila